Down. Just make yourself comfortable in your chair, rubbing your hands together and tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder. Your arm. The other side. Onto your chest. Belly. And your legs. Good. Back. So with your feet out, just allowing your weight to drop into the back of the chair, and this sort of angle thing, like you're sitting in a reclining deck chair or something like that. And with that, this feeling releasing through the front of your body, got your rib cage, just getting the sense of your rib cage almost flattening out slightly. When you breathe in, maybe going a little bit deeper into your body, almost as though your lungs were down in your belly rather than right up in your chest. And then bringing your feet in, coming to the upright position. With your legs now offering a significant amount of support, about a third of your weight in your legs. I'm quite forward in the chair, but you don't necessarily have to be that. You might appreciate there's a little bit of support for your lower back from the back of the chair, so you could be further back. But that same sense of draining away through your body. Leaving the upper body quite sort of clear. And your chin should pull back towards your Adam's apple. I'll show you from the side. So it's not a bending of your neck, it's a drawing back. So your skull just moves on the very top of the spine, and you'll find that the top 2 or 3 vertebrae, there's a little curve there. The top 2 or 3 vertebrae, as your spine goes in to your neck, the curve just becomes a little bit shallower, and the bony ridge above those vertebrae, the base of the skull, called the occipital ridge, lifts slightly. So we've got now a situation where our hips are sinking down into the chair, and there's that sort of dropping through your pelvis, and a slight sense of pulling on the base of the spine. And at the top, with this lifting of the occipital ridge, a slight pull upwards. So it's as though somebody's taken hold of your spine at either end and just very gently drawn out. And you can feel taller without actually having to sort of push yourself up. And this is quite significant. And it's a lovely feeling, a lovely expansive feeling. You still retain gentle curves in your spine, but the spine does get straighter and the spaces between the vertebrae open up. And it's a very gentle way of just, in a sense, livening yourself up. You don't actually have to push your head up or anything like that. You again, you let your hips sink back, you let your chin pull in. So, and this just creates what the Chinese talk about the spine as a string of pearls, a pearl necklace. And it's like somebody's taken hold of the necklace at either end. It's all scrunched up on the table and just gently drawn the ends apart so that the pearls separate and the necklace gets longer. And the same thing with the spine. And it's quite a nice remedy to that kind of droopiness that we can sometimes feel at this time of year, you know, when it starts getting dark and we're kind of half falling asleep. You can't sustain a kind of very strong, like, I'm going to push up, I'm going to be fine. But these are just very gentle adjustments. And then just turning your head. And then the shoulders, hands in front of your shoulders, small circles back with your elbows. And then going forwards. Hands down to your sides, winding them around. And then raising your hands a little bit like you're winding up string or wool, cotton. Back the other way. Let your hands rest and ease forwards a little. Feel the feeling of compression in your legs, and then your legs expand, pushing you back up. At the same time, almost the opposite in your hips and lower back. Here, hips sinking back, lower back extending out, and then that contracts as your legs push back. Nice steady movement, nice steady rhythm. And then turn a little bit so that your head is going towards one knee. So that's the line that you want to take. And then turn the other way. Remember, the turn is in hips and waist, not twisting your shoulders around. and then all the way around. It's not a big movement, and you want to feel as though your spine almost floating in your body. Make too big a movement and you'll sort of overextend yourself and begin to stiffen up. And go back the other way. Come back to the middle. Raise one foot, one heel, step forwards, heel, toes, and then pull back. Make sure you raise your toes as you step forwards. You practice what is actually an essential sort of part of our walking process. You leave it dragged down, then it's just going to hit the floor. And on the other side. One more. And be parallel. And then once again, your hands to your sides. Once again, just turning your hands palm forwards. Arms hanging from your shoulders. And then moving your weight forward, rotating your shoulders as you go. And then back. Do 2 more. And then this time, fisherman castanet. Arms just swinging from your shoulders, momentum gradually building up. But still very soft in your shoulders, not straining for the movement. Just carry on while I adjust the light a bit. Fingers spread out slightly. And then imagine the ball between your arms and your chest. Now, pigeon spreads its wings, turning your hands in, drawing apart, and pressing together. through the movement here in your ribs, sternum, nice sort of massaging quality of movement, whole of your chest. One more time. This time, bring your hand straight back, but your elbows going out, pushing a wave. Hands start in front of your hips and curve up to a point, I suppose about 2/3 of your way up your chest, just underneath the shoulders. One more time. Then make a loose fist with both hands. And your arms rotate as you go forwards, palm down, and then rotating again to palm up as you come back. So quite a strong little exercise in your shoulders, this one. If you can't get your hands all the way around, don't force them. Straining your shoulders won't help. Do one more of these, and from the forward position, going back to pigeon spreads its wings. And just building this into a little sequence of 3. We do the pigeon and then the push. Pushing a wave. And then punch with both fists. A little sequence going back after this one to pigeon spreads its wings. Notice what is sort of common ground for these 3 exercises, and also what distinguishes one from another. Where do you feel the effect? One more round. Now, after this one, turning your hands all the way out, winding around. This is how the rotating movement sort of brings your hands inwards quite naturally. So again, we have a circle, a horizontal circle there. We're tracing the circle with our fingertips. One more time. Bring your hands back so they're in front of your belly again. Turn them palm down, polishing the table. One more time on each side. Your hands in and pushing up. Hips sinking down into the chair, feet sinking into the floor. And then the wild goose, hands out to your sides. This time we're going to change again to part in the clouds. All you have to do with this one is just feel out through the edges of the circle without straining or stiffening in the shoulders or your arms or your upper back. One more time. And then letting your arms hang down once again. And dragon plucks the stars from the sky. Taking your time as you change from one side to another. Otherwise, it becomes a little bit like running down the hill. You just get faster and faster. So the sooner you can put a little bit of a brake on, the better. one more on each side. So you can follow the movement. You know, your fingers curl in, your elbow drops, the hand obviously follows, and then hand goes all the way down. Your fingers uncurl, and only then are you ready to start on the other side. So an attention to the detail is a good way of just establishing a rhythm and a flow. Bring your hands around, partly because it means that your conscious mind is occupied with details, and that flow, that rhythm is actually a very natural thing for our body. But if we try too hard to get there, it gets more distant. This time, I'm going to add in the little turning movement in your hips. Remember, that doesn't have to be a big movement. Shouldn't be a big movement, but it will build up through your body. You'll end up with this feeling that your arms have turned quite a long way. Still with that feeling of elevation through the back of your head. So we've now got 4 stages to compare, focus on. So last time, now when you push your hands out, just extend one foot, knees still quite bent, your toes are up, scooping the sea and looking at the sky. And then grasping the tiger's ears. This time your head going forwards, up very slightly. I talked about your legs being compressed when the weight moves in. As you go back here, see if you can feel the same effect in the spine. So essentially the spine works like a spring, pushing your head upwards and forwards, and that draws your arms over. Switch over. Scooping the sea and looking at the sky. And then changing again, grasping the tiger's ears. One more time. Bring your feet parallel. Let your hips just sink back down in to the chair. And going back to this little movement, your head going around in a circle. This is going to be the basis for the next movement that we do. This is the sort of foundation feeling of it. Try going the other way. And then with one hand, just letting that movement draw your hand around in a circle, about just a little bit above your legs. A nice smooth transition. Just let your arm lengthen as your head goes forwards and draw in as the head goes back. Now try on the other side. Feel any difference between one side and another? There could be all sorts of reasons for that, but just remind yourself that the heart of the movement is here, not on one side or another, but in the middle of your body. So sometimes, if you've got a stiff shoulder or something like that, it can really draw our attention. And sometimes, as we know, that can be a useful thing in Tai Chi. It can actually help us to sort of open up those areas. But sometimes we don't want to draw our attention to it. That can just reinforce it. And we sort of bypass it, we flow past it. So feeling that the movement is really rooted here in the belly, the movement of your weight forwards and backwards, and the rotation is very much something that you want to practice. And especially now, we're going to go into stirring the beans. So full attention in the middle of your body. When you turn, just feel which way the movement is going in your shoulders and across your chest. And notice that your arms just quite reasonably follow the basic pattern. Stirring the beans. Do one more on each side. And just rest. So when we get a movement like that, where it looks a bit baffling and we start to think, oh, this hand's doing that, this hand's doing something different. Actually, we want to get more of a sense of what's going on in the center of the body. And we find that it's just very simple. You turn right, you turn left, you turn, and that's where we hold the focus of our attention. Now, just rubbing your hands together. And then tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. one shoulder, arm. And then on the other side. Upper part of the chest. Nice and light on your belly, but still quite rapid. And last of all, quite strong on your legs. And get the blood from the feeling into the muscles of your legs. And then just pushing one foot down into the floor, I'll show you from the side there, just up and down. And that will work your calf muscle and the thigh muscle. Remember that your legs need to move. For the value of your circulation, the blood has to find a way to get moved back up your leg. There isn't anything to actively pump it. So movement is an important element in the circulation of the blood and indeed the energy through your legs. And then push up and go round in a circle. See if you can feel the rotation in your hip joint. Good. And then on the other side, so first of all, your heel, pushing up. Very simple, very useful to remember. And then around. Okay, and then stand. So feet hip width apart and as parallel as possible. So you might be more comfortable with your feet slightly turned out, but it should only be slightly. Just rolling your weight forwards and backwards. And as you do this, try and get the feeling once again with that focus on the center of your body that I talked about in Stirring the Beans. It's almost like what you're doing is straddling one of these balls that you get in, these big blue balls that you get in gyms. Imagine that you're just sitting on that and gently rocking forwards and backwards. So you feel as though your center is actually just rolling forwards and back a little bit. Soften your hips and your lower back, so you just give space for your pelvis to adjust to the change in angle. Coming to your sort of point of equilibrium, resting there, letting your hips drop back. Now, this is how you're just dropping down onto the ball, and eventually the ball pushes you up. So we can imagine the center, not just as the actual physical center of the body, which we do, of course, sometimes, but also as that whole area from the physical center down to the ground. It's that part of your body that you want to be able to sink down. And again, if we use this image of the ball, if you were to sit on a ball, the ball would compress, and then when it expanded, it would push up. but it would also push downwards. So this image is quite a useful one, because what we don't want to do is to go to all the trouble of sinking the weight down. Then when we come up, sort of do this and get top heavy again. So the downward movement that I'm talking about, and I've talked before about these opposite movements, these balancing movements, means that you keep that sense of being rooted. And the effect is that your body grows out of the root, like a plant grows out of its root. You don't lift your center of gravity up. And then you bring your hands around in front of you. So you're lifting a heavy ball. And then as you sink down, it's like you're trying to press a ball down into water. And then change into the wild goose. And then parting the clouds. One more time. And then just give your legs a little shake. Now, again, if this image of the ball is useful to you, then keep it. Just transferring your weight from side to side a little. You move across, settle into one leg, turn and raise the opposite heel. The other foot will probably go down at a slight angle. Same thing on the other side. Hands in front of you, following the movement. And just turn your hands so your fingers are pointing forwards. And then you come across, and here your hand lifts and extends. You turn it palm down, you come down, it comes back the same way. You turn, your hand lifts and extends and back. So hitting the ball in front of the shoulder, a strong movement from your foot right into the palm of your hand, connected through your hip and everything in between. Really sinking down in the supporting leg, because that springiness in the leg really propels you into the next movement. One more on each side. Okay, and shake out. So I'm going to come a little bit closer, and I'm going to exaggerate this a little bit. What I was talking about earlier with the lengthening of the spine, the pearl necklace, the string of pearls. I go to here, and then you see how my hips drop back. And when I do that, I can feel that the curve in the small of my back becomes quite shallow. At the same time, I go from this to this. You can see that my head just articulates on the top of the spine. And again, the curve in the neck becomes quite shallow. And this ridge here lifts. So it's like you've taken the pearl necklace and it's all scrunched up on the table, and you haven't kind of wrenched it or anything like that. You've just gently drawn the ends apart. And so in your spine, you start to get this sense of the vertebrae being gently drawn apart. You can feel taller when you do that, and there's more space between the vertebrae. The spine doesn't totally straighten. You retain the curves, but they will quite often get more shallow. And so when we're here, same thing, hips sinking down and the chin drawing in. So you have this nice open quality. And I love this image of the pearl necklace with the string of pearls. It's a good image for the spine. And then heel coming up, so back hip drops down, knee goes forward, heel comes up, you go back, front hip drops down. It's like somebody's pushed there and it's just drawn your toes up. So still that idea of sinking being the kind of primary action, I suppose you could say, the action that initiates all others. And stepping in. And then on the other side. First of all, fix that. And again, you can, if it helps to imagine the ball, use that image. Raising your toes and your heel. And step in. And then step through. And change direction if you haven't done so already. Just using the space around you in the most economical way. Good. Shake out. And then fisherman cast net. Good. And then on the other side. Once more. And then shake out. Good. That time went really quickly. So back to your chairs. So this thing of the lengthening of your spine is the difference between sort of this and this. But it's not a brittle, rigid thing. It's a gentle extension. And a friend of mine who taught in Glasgow, he used to teach a lot of people from the poorer areas. He said, he used to talk about people having, sort of like the kind of health and lifestyle issues that we would associate with that sort of poverty. And I asked him once what he was trying to achieve with his with his Tai Chi. He was a very beautiful mover, very clear move, and I wondered how he kind of got this across to the people he was talking about. And he thought about it, and he said he was trying to raise spirit, which I thought was a really interesting phrase, because in Chinese energy terms, the spirit is the Shen, and it's located in the head. And if you went around to see a friend and they were sitting there a bit like that, you'd say, well, what's wrong? You'd know that they were kind of like, that they had that kind of low spirit. And body and mind and emotions and everything are all linked up. And I'm not suggesting that it's the cure for all kind of depression or whatever, but we can actually bring about that a change from that kind of slightly kind of bent over quality. And this time of year can happen very easily. If it's one of those grey days, today's quite sunny, but when the cloud is low and the nights are getting longer and it's cold, we can feel a kind of sense of being kind of drawn in, I suppose. And this idea of, you let the hips sink, you draw your chin back, and it just brings about a very kind of gentle change, not just physically, but in that kind of almost emotional sense as well. So it's quite an interesting thing to do, and it's never forced. You can see it's very simple. So Embrace Tiger, Return to Mountain. I've talked about the mountain representing the stillness and the root and so on and so forth, but mountains are quite tall. That's what makes them mountains. So they have a top as well. So when we return to the mountain, what we're not doing is this sort of like hunching in on ourselves. There's a sense of draining away internally, but you've still got that slight sense of a lift through the back of your head or through the crown of your head, if you prefer to think of it through there. Some people do. But at the same time, this very solid, very profound of the quietness. One more time. And rest. Lovely. Thank you very much, everybody, as always.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
So take care. Enjoy the rest of your day.